Engage.
EnergyHog.org. That's it.
Brought to you by the Alliance to Save Energy.
Nancy Pelosi. I have a friend of mine that had dinner with Nancy Pelosi 3 weeks ago. They were actually at the last week of August, and said she spent the entire dinner going on about how much she personally hated George W. Bush.
Well, she might be honest
people
about
don't
that.
like Bush. Okay, fine. Everyone hates Bush. Fine. But in a private dinner, if you're the Speaker of the House, to still be like so angry about Bush that you can't stop talking about it is kind of pathetic, actually.
Well, if there's anybody, if there's one president that probably, that was the divider, not the decider, that guy, even you have said that he's a buffoon. He's an absolute idiot. There may only be one.
I didn't vote for him the second time, so you know how I feel about it. I didn't vote at all, because I obviously wasn't going to vote for John Kerry. That's a joke. But no, I was not a Bush fan, and I was pretty clear about that from day one.
But if you're in the Senate like she is, you're in the House, Senate, whatever. She's got a first-hand experience of how much of a buffoon this guy is. I don't have a problem with her.
And so do a lot of people, but they get over it because it's a new day. We got a new president. There are new problems, new possibilities. But that's who she is. She's like an angry, nasty person. And I'll just give you an example. There's a congresswoman from California called Jane Harman. And Jane Harman, is a liberal, but she knows a lot about intelligence. She's been on the Intelligence Committee for many years. She's an expert on the subject. Nancy Pelosi prevented her from being chairman of that committee just because she didn't like her. They had some kind of feud. She's that person.
Ooh, yeah. Let me ask you a question. You being a journalist for the long time, print journalist, for the most part, I don't really have to. I do get the newspaper here every day. Just because, it's kind of like old school mentality. We probably wouldn't, Spice, we wouldn't have to, would we?
No.
We could find it all online.
Absolutely.
Brent, we have
no problem.
But we still get it, do you think for the most part that, newspapers in a print and deliver type mentality, that's over with regards to being a legitimate news source? Is the day and age of newspaper done?
It's done. It's done. It's sad. But let me put it this way. No one will ever buy another printing press in the United States because no bank will lend money for that purchase. And there are a bunch of things wrong with newspapers. One, the model is completely outdated, that you would print this book every day and hire people to throw it against your customers' doors. That's just obviously, that in the age of the Internet, is an inefficient model. The other problem with newspapers is they have these top-heavy management structures, and they have unions. Most big city dailies have newspaper guilds to contend with, and they overpay their employees. It's ridiculous. It's actually a lot like the American car companies. They've had monopolies for decades. They've printed money. They are not ready for competition, and they can't handle competition from the Internet. The New York Times, which is by every measure the best paper in the world, in my opinion. It has the most reporters. It has the most news. It's a flawed paper. It's liberal, whatever, but it's still a great paper. They're totally out of money. They took a $250 million loan from Carlos Slim, who's a Mexican billionaire, the richest person in the world, and they took it, I have heard, at 14% interest.
Oh.
Can you imagine? 14% interest. And I don't think they're going to be able to pay back the note. And when it comes due, I think they're seriously in a lot of trouble. So, if the New York Times is in trouble, yeah, it's over.
I was reading where Sam Zell, who owns the Tribune Company, was saying he wished he never got into that business.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Of course, I could have told you that. That's not a winning. That's not a winning business, right?
Tuck, have you read any Ron Kessler's books? We had him on. He's like 18 or 19 books, and I never heard of the guy because you know that I know nothing. I don't read for the most part. Not that I.
Of course you do.
Anyway, make a long story short, this guy had some great. Just the working titles of a lot of his books, but his latest one was about the Secret Service and the presidents that they protect. And have you read any of Ron Kessler's books?
Yeah, I think I read his FBI. He wrote an FBI book, right?
Yeah, several, yes.
Yeah, I did. And Ron Kessler, I just ran into him at lunch the other day, actually.
He was on the show. You should have Bubba Army.
He was on the show. How was he?
He was, he was a little dry, but man, he had some great stuff. As a matter of fact, one of the things he said is that the Secret Service now is in such financial druthers that they've cut their services. I'm sorry, that threats against the president are up 400%. Do you believe that?
Well, that's unbelievable.
Obviously, black president.
That's awful.
White hillbillies, place.
You know what, though? That's such crap. And I know that you guys who live in a primitive part of the country with primitive people, I guess, think that there's a huge amount of white racism. Do you realize that Barack Obama got more white votes than Gore or Kerry?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean there's still not a certain segment of the white population that hates.
Of course they're racist, but, James Carville just did a poll, Democracy Corps, this polling group that he has. He and a guy called Stan Greenberg, who's a famous Democratic pollster, just did a poll of Republicans in focus groups. And they found literally zero indication of racial animus from Republicans toward Barack Obama.
Now, hold on.
Now, you can say, well, people lie to pollsters. Okay, they do lie to pollsters. That's right.
That's affluent white people like myself that have voted.
No. This isn't rich white people. This is the Republican base. These are evangelicals. These are right wingers.
But hold on, that guy living in Alabama,
I don't hate him because of his race.
I don't think the people threatening the president's life necessarily have a party affiliation at all. They're white supremacists.
Yeah, I don't think they're registered voters.
White supremacists don't really support the Republican Party.
I don't think that they're.
No, they don't. I'm just saying. Look, there are racists out there, obviously, and there are white supremacists, and it's bad. I hate that. On the other hand, there is not a large group of these people. They are small. They are marginalized. So one of them, God forbid, could try to hurt the president, and that would be a tragedy for many reasons. But they don't represent. They're a tiny, tiny portion of America. And everybody I talk to, especially like rich liberals, they all think it's 1956 still in the country. It's not. It's a different country.
Tucker has no idea what's happening.
And I will tell you, there is
when you're the heir to the Swan fortune, you got your Swanson fortune. Yeah, exactly. Spice, go ahead.
There is a certain segment of the white population, albeit small, but a certain segment that voted for Barack out of white guilt.
Small? I wouldn't say it's small.
So a large percent white guilt. I mean, it wasn't because it was just because of the fact that, hey, I voted for Barack Obama.
You want to be able to,
it's like saying that you have a black friend.
Yeah, you want to be able to.
My best friend is black.
You get a little mileage out of that.
Absolutely.
You get a little mileage.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. Or people voted for him in the hopes that it'd be a better country, less racial tension, that we can get past the legacy of slavery. I mean, a lot of people, I think, that was one of the reasons a lot of people voted for Obama.
I want to change my vote now that I saw Meghan McCain's boobs.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that?
Oh, I like it. It's money, my friend.
Much ado about nothing.
Who
cares? Why do the Republicans have such a problem with it, though?
Because they got nothing else to have a problem with. They're so downtrodden.
They're repressed.
Yeah, the Republicans. I mean, Tucker,
I didn't think it was that hot a picture, honestly, at all.
Well, compare it to a Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah, compare it to the other,
the other beasts that have roamed around.
Tell me another politician that's got something, a daughter that's throwing it out there that's hotter. By the way, just give me one.
Well, I like Meghan. I've known Meghan McCain since she was a kid, and I've always liked her.
She's not a kid now. I know that you've seen her as an adult, and what say you?
I've spent a fair amount of time with Meghan McCain. I mean, I think she's a nice person.
Alone?
No, not alone. Just on the campaign. She traveled with her dad, and I think last time I started, I had lunch with her at some place in New Hampshire in the hotel we were staying at. I was actually doing email on my computer, and she came and sat down and we had lunch. And again, I've known her since she was in high school, and I have always liked her. But I think that, I think she's insecure, and I think, I just feel sorry for her.
No, what if she said, "Hey, Tucker, take me back to your room and take me, I want you to take me."
Honestly, I mean, and even if I hadn't been a married man with 4 kids, I would say, no offense or anything, but let's just go ahead and keep it platonic.
Right.
What a fag.
Yeah. What a pussy.
I'm not saying she's unattractive, but she just doesn't throw off the vibe for me.
What if my end all be all Contessa Brewer told you to take her, and you were not married with kids?
Contessa Brewer has been highly annoying lately. What? I will say that.
Oh, you're fixing to get hung up on, bitch.
I know. Let me just say, I've always liked Contessa Brewer, and I've defended Contessa Brewer against Imus. I mean, I actually went kind of out on a limb to defend Contessa Brewer, and I love your love affair with Contessa Brewer. I mean, it is, it's an inspiration to a lot of us.
Right.
But she said something the other day that infuriated me. She's going on about how something was sexist, complaining about bias against women. And if there's one thing for which I have zero patience, it's people whining about sexism.
Right.
Considering that women, and this is fine, but they do control everything in the world, as you know. They control every household. They control every man. And
maybe